Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the Chess Masters, and today we're going to be looking at one of the basic tactics of chess, and this is something you should know as a beginner, and it's called pins. What are pins in real life? Well, in real life, pins are sharp, and in chess, pins can set up a really good attack, and it can help you win material very quickly. So today we are going to be looking at a few different examples and seeing how pins can be very helpful in specific positions. Let's take a look at our first position. There are many different types of pins, and the first position is going to show an absolute pin. Okay, now I will explain what a pin means. A pin is when you put pressure on a piece that cannot move, because if it does move, the king will be in check. And you'll see in a moment what that means. So a really good move here is bishop to a4. So why is this a good move? As you can see, it is putting pressure on this knight here. And you might be thinking, okay, the knight can move. It isn't that big of a deal. Well, the knight cannot move because, as you can see, the king is on the same diagonal that the bishop is pointing to. So if the knight moves, the king will be in check, and that's very bad. So it's actually an illegal move in chess to move your knight. So let's say you play a move like b5. Now this doesn't seem bad, but it's even worse, because now after bishop takes b5, you still get this really annoying pin. Even after trying queen d7, that actually puts you in an even worse position, because if d5 happens, or bishop takes c6, that's another alternative, and then queen takes c6, you actually get checkmate with this sneaky queen here going all the way to c8, and that would be a really cool checkmate. Notice that now the queen is gone, cannot do anything, and now white isn't, or now black is checkmated. So let's go back and see that if queen takes h3 and g takes h3, notice that the pawn is putting pressure on this knight, and so is the bishop keeping this pin. Let's just give black a random move. Let's say he takes this h pawn, and now white wins the black knight. And now see that pins are super helpful. Even though the knight could not move, it was stuck in this really annoying pin, and that gave white a big chance to gain some material. Let's take a look at our next position. This position is called a partial pin, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. A partial pin is when the piece is still allowed to move, but if it moves out of a diagonal or a file, it will be in check, and you'll see here in a moment. This was actually a real game played, and now white does queen takes b7, attacking this rook. Now this is actually a really great move, and black made a huge blunder after this move. Now you might be thinking you can do queen c6, but now black is in huge trouble. Either you have two options. One is better, and one of them is the pin. How can you put a pin on the queen and attack the king if the queen moves? If you chose bishop to b5, great job. Bishop to b5 puts a pin on this black king and the queen. And as you know, the queen is the most powerful piece, and losing it means you're in huge trouble. Now what I mean by a partial pin is the queen can still move on these two squares. It can move to this square, d7, or to this square, b5. The reason for that is because it's not in check when you do this. If you move here, the bishop is still pinning it. Either move you do here would still win the black queen. But can you see something even better? If you can, that is really amazing. There is actually a checkmate in 5. Let's go back. So it will be queen c8 check, and then king e7, bishop to g5 check, f6, e takes f6 check, knight takes f6, rook e1 check, queen e4, and finally rook takes e4. See, we won the queen anyway because it's actually putting another pin on this queen. And after bishop to b5, let's go back. After this pin, Black immediately resigned because he knew that he was going to lose the queen anyway or get checkmated. Let's take a look at another position. This position is another version of a partial pin. Can you find a way for the rook to pin the queen? Well, as you know, there are many open files, and rooks really like to go on open files. And as you can see, there is this very good open file here of the queen and the king. And as you can see, this rook is just waiting to hop on one of these open files. So a really good move is rook e1. Rook e1 puts a pin on this queen and the king. And as you see, there's another partial pin, and queen has actually many squares to go to. You can go in any of these squares or take. The best move is either queen e7, because if the rook takes, let's put queen e7, because if the rook takes, the king takes, now white is only up a knight, and is still probably going to win. But you still got the rook, and that would make life a little bit easier for you. Let's go back. Another alternative is to just take this rook, and then the king or the knight can take. Let's just say the knight can take, and you're still up a knight, so it'll still be better for white in either way. If you didn't do either of those, that would be in huge trouble. If you move to any of these squares, they'll just win the queen for free, and they'll still have their rook. Let's look at our final position. This is a very cool position, and it's called a situational pin. A situational pin is not a pin to the king, but if you move it, it could give you in pretty bad position. So let's see what will happen here. A move that you could do is h takes g5, and that looks like a pretty good move because this pawn is pinned. But you might see that this bishop looks free. There's no pawns defending it, and the rook is all the way over here and doesn't have enough time to defend this bishop. But let's see what happens. A big part of chess is thinking ahead. And here you have to think ahead, thinking, what is my opponent thinking to not defend this bishop? Is there anything bigger? Well, let's see. We know that a knight is less than a rook. It costs less or less points. So let's see what happens when the knight takes the bishop. The knight and the bishop have the same amount of points, so the bishop is also less worthy than the rook. Let's say knight takes e5. This seems like an okay move. You've just won the bishop, but now you're in huge trouble. This is actually, the rook can put a skewer on the king and the rook, and we'll look at skewers in a later video. A really good move for black is rook to c1, and the reason for this is that the king is forced to move. It doesn't matter where, it actually only has one move, d2, and once the king moves to d2, the rook just took the other rook. So as you can see, pins are very helpful in these kind of positions, and even when you're losing, you can still look for these really cool tactics called pins, and that can give you some more material and help you at least get a better position, or maybe even win the game later on. So be sure to look out for those, and make sure you use pins in your real games if you can find them. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching.